Let's get started, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to this month's Future of Food series, Cooking Up a Brand on TikTok. Today's episode is all about the intersection of content and commerce and what it really takes for a food and beverage brand to break through in a content first world. We're especially excited for today's conversation. It's a very special one. We're joined here by Cameron Gould Saltman, the head of food and beverage at TikTok Shop. This is a very special one because Cameron is actually a former intern from Blue Sign Ventures. I can't remember what year. What year was that?
2017, I think.
2017. Wow, the time does fly by. So our first time having a former intern on the show. He has been doing amazing things since being at Blue Side Ventures. So excited to highlight the amazing work he's done. Before TikTok, Cameron also worked at Amazon, another big player in the space, where he helped lead the rollout of their Amazon Fresh stores. And now at TikTok, he's focused on helping food and beverage brands succeed on TikTok Shop, the platform's fast growing social commerce engine. So from vital trends to direct-to-consumer success stories, Cameron is at the forefront of how people discover, engage with, and buy food online. He works with brands from scrappy startups to iconic household names to build strategies that turn content into real commercial impact. We're talking about sales here. So in this conversation, we're going to cover a range of topics, everything from how to drive brand discovery, build authentic engagement, and convert engagement to sales on the platform. So whether you're building a brand, backing one, or just fascinated by how people buy food today, you're in the right place. If you've got questions, please drop them in the chat. We're going to go for about 45 minutes. We want this to make this interactive, so feel free to put a question in there. I'll try to pepper them in, and we'll certainly leave some time at the end for Q&A. So before we get to Cameron, just quick introduction of myself. I'm Andrew Bluestein, co-founder and co-managing partner at Blue Sign Ventures. Blue Sign is an early stage venture firm based here in Chicago, investing in the future of food. We invest across the supply chain, everything from consumer, software, food technology, all companies trying to drive the industry to be healthier, more sustainable, and better as a whole. With that, I'll hand it off to Cameron and let him introduce himself. Cameron, can you share a little bit more about your background and tell us more about what your team does in the food and beverage space at TikTok?
Absolutely. And thanks so much for having me, Andrew and Ashley and the Bluestein crew. It's good to see some familiar faces, or rather, familiar faces and familiar names in the attendee list. I did business school in Chicago, as Andrew alluded to. So I've come across many of you folks in my work with emerging startups. So I started my career in big CPG. So coming out of school, I was at Unilever. I was that big CPG guy working in finance, working in trade finance, figuring out how to make these billion-dollar budgets work for them, right? How we were going to get an incremental point of growth out of Walmart. Did that for a few years before over to Amazon in 2014. Wanting to spread my wings a little bit more than I was at a company growing, 1 to 2 points a year. So worked at Amazon in a couple different capacities. Worked in hard lines in the consumer electronics business, kind of cutting my teeth on the hardcore retail stuff before moving over to this burgeoning grocery delivery business of Amazon Fresh. And in my work with startups at Amazon Fresh, really decided that I wanted to have more of an impact on them. So went to business school in Chicago to try my hand at a bunch of different stuff, including early stage investing with Bluestein Ventures, including working at every incubator and accelerator under the sun that touched food and beverage. Met my wife at the Hatchery Chicago. And ended up going back to Amazon unexpectedly after business school to work on a secret food and beverage project, which was to launch a national chain of grocery stores. So worked as a category leader on a couple different categories, ultimately leading our perishables and culinary divisions, kind of Amazon's first foray into food service at the end of my time there. So super interesting stuff, and ended up coming over to TikTok in December of 2023 to lead our SMB portfolio of food and beverage businesses. So at the time when I came over, we were selling freeze-dried candy and chamoy pickle kits. That's kind of it, right? This was a 4-month-old platform that was TikTok's first step into e-commerce in the US. Over the last year and a half or so, things have clearly changed, right? This has become a growing channel, to be sure. I have expanded the scope, so not just focus on the small guys now, but also focus on some of the bigger household names, as you mentioned. So my team is, I've really got a few teams under me. I've got a business development team who goes out and finds the brand. So we've probably run into them at trade shows here and there. They are the prospectors, the hunters and gatherers, if you will. They find brands who are excited about TikTok Shop, who think they will do well on TikTok Shop, and they bring them on, right? They onboard them, they go through the onboarding process. And once you're set up with a TikTok Shop, and the process is largely self-service, then you will go into an incubation community. So then you can hand it off to my account management team. So we have a little bit of an incubation community that is passively managed. And that is where a brand can prove themselves. They'll get tips and tricks and best practices and the strong foundation to build a presence on TikTok Shop. And once they're selling at a steady clip, then they get handed off to an account manager who will manage them one-on-one, who will build them a joint business plan, who will build them a content strategy, who will go out and work on a quarterly plan with them. And that is facilitated by a content strategy team that I have. So that content strategy team, it's kind of an interesting one. These are the influencer experts. They build communities of influencers, food and beverage influencers who can talk about XYZ product, energy drink influencers who want to talk about the next cutting edge energy drinks, and they will help those businesses grow. So the scope has changed, the role has changed, the channel is certainly changing, and I'm excited to dive into it with you today.
Awesome. Awesome. Give us a little bit of scope here in terms of TikTok shop and kind of, you've been there a couple of years now. How big is it today? How fast has it grown? And what is the range of, you know, brands in terms of kind of small to big? And like what is it like for like what give us an idea of like what a brand can be doing on TikTok shop these days?
Yeah. So I will be brutally honest with you. I've got about 8,000 food and beverage brands who have onboarded onto TikTok Shop. 7,000 of them don't sell anything, right? So think about this, right? We are a marketplace first and foremost. That means that all of the retail levers are up to the brand. And there's something of a misconception, which is why a lot of these brands don't sell anything. They list a product and they don't do anything with that product. So we're very different than other e-commerce platforms, which we can talk about in a bit. But the brands who are not producing content on TikTok Shop aren't going to sell anything. So we are a content-centric platform, a video-centric platform. So the brands who are selling are range drastically. I've got brands selling a couple $100 a day because they are producing one video a month and they aren't sending many samples. I've also got big brands who are doing $100,000 a day. So I would say the range is substantial. I would say brands in our sweet spot are brands who are nimble and are excited, and they can be doing, I would say on average, are probably doing $10,000 to $15,000 a day is kind of what I view as healthy, as an engaged brand. But when I came in, food and beverage, and I'm not supposed to disclose these numbers, so please don't let it leave this room. Like the food and beverage category was doing $10,000 a day in sales. I have more than 120x that over the last year and a half, and I've got some big goals. Right, I'm expected to 3x my business over the next few months. So we are not stopping anytime soon. We are putting pedal to the metal constantly. We are growing our teams. I grew from a team of 2 to a team of 24 over the last 18 months or so. So really excited to keep this thing going and discovering those new brands, right? I've had a lot of retailers and funds reach out to me saying like, what's trending? What's next? Because they know the role that TikTok can play in kind of shaping the ecosystem.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. That's amazing, amazing growth. It's a kind of your own startup starting in a bigger place, but amazing growth. And certainly I know the environment that you like to operate in. The number though that you said there in terms of not the number of people not selling on TikTok Shop who are registered. So how do you think of TikTok Shop in the landscape of other sales channels that are seeing online, and is that evolving? How are you seeing this play out kind of real time between something like an Instagram or an Amazon or other channels that are playing online?
Yeah, so the role and the framing of TikTok Shop has changed in my time here. So we were calling it content commerce, right? That's kind of what we were. We were video driven e-commerce. We have seen that evolve substantially given some of the levers that you have, right? So we have TikTok, this legacy entertainment and ads platform, and seeing what those ads were driving, right? Brand A could spend on ads, would lead to their own direct to consumer site, and you'd lose a bunch of those customers in the funnel. This is kind of the impetus for or the genesis of TikTok Shop, right? We essentially built this front end that sits on top of an existing direct to consumer infrastructure, so brands wouldn't lose all those customers in the funnel. So now what we've seen is customers discovering brands on platform, often converting on platform, but sometimes converting off platform, right? If Amazon is going to deliver you a product tomorrow, or if you could go to Walmart because you know you've walked past a brand and you were just waiting for an endorsement from somebody on TikTok and you want to go down the street to a Walmart to buy it, that's fine too. So now we're framing this as discovery e-commerce. This is where brands can be discovered for the first time by any number of consumers, right? We've got 180 million active users. That means there's a lot of eyeballs on this platform. Any number of those can discover your product for the first time. And I think the big difference between us and Amazon, as you mentioned, a place I'm very familiar, where my wife currently works, and we often talk about kind of what we're thinking about and the differences in how the propositions look, is I would call that shelf e-commerce, whereas we are content e-commerce. For instance, those 7,000 brands, without producing a video, will not sell a thing. We don't have many customers coming onto TikTok and searching for toilet paper. That is how customers shop on Amazon, right? That is search driven. We are not as search driven. 75% of my top line comes from content. So this is customers looking for entertainment, scrolling through their videos, how to drive a golf ball farther, cat videos, and then seeing essentially an endorsement from somebody they trust or they like or find entertaining and purchasing directly from that video. So this is truly content driven. If there's no content, the brand's likely not going to succeed. And that doesn't have to be content directly from the brand, right? We've got this whole creator infrastructure built so that you can capitalize on 2 million affiliates to produce that content for you if content isn't in your DNA.
So content discovery, right? That kind of element of really driving the platform. So, let's dive into, if you are a brand who's interested in really trying to build a business, on TikTok Shop, what is the starting point? What do you see as kind of that first wave of visibility that a brand can do without, particularly when they're just trying to figure out their voice, they're maybe trying not to try too hard. They're trying to connect with folks. Like, what is that starting point of, discovery when you think about it?
Yeah, I think it comes from authenticity. That's one of the biggest differences. And that's why, frankly, some large CPGs have had trouble wrapping their head around this because this is not fit nicely into a traditional sales or marketing model, right? We are something of an intersection where you've got to effectively create shoppertainment or infotainment that is entertaining enough to get a customer to continue watching a video, but informational enough and enticing enough to get them to convert from that video. And that's something that's very difficult, but I would say authenticity. The authenticity comes from connecting with the right creators. And for a bit of background, I said we've got these creators. TikTok Shop, we facilitate that on the back end. So imagine pulling creator agencies out of the equation. Brand registers for TikTok Shop, and we give you 2 million creators and facilitate that interaction on the back end. So if you can find the right creators who have something to do with your brand, right? I don't want Joe Schmo who sells hunting cameras and garbage candy to talk about my better for you, no sugar added organic brand that I'm targeting for Erewhon customers, right? It might not have the same customer demographics or same audiences, but if you find those creators who have an authentic connection with the brand, that is where the magic happens. And the magic of the algorithm is we'll help you find that, and it will naturally find the right audiences. So when something feels like an endorsement or a review from a friend, customers jive with it. I would also say if you're telling a founder story, so customers can shop with their values and place a bet on somebody they like rather than a conglomerate pumping out widgets in the middle of nowhere, that will convert in a superior manner. So I would say poke around the affiliate center, find those affiliates or those influencers who seem like they would have an authentic connection with the brand, and then test and learn. But also test and learn with your own content, right? This is a fun channel. This should be a brand's sandbox to play around in. Obviously, the unit economics need to be there. So for my investor friends, like we want to be a good steward of your capital as well. And I think this is actually a really, really enticing channel from an economics perspective. But it's all about testing and learning. The feedback loop in this channel is so tight because the volume is there, right? Imagine the DTC data with e-commerce volumes is kind of how I think about it. Um,
Yeah.
and curious how you guys at Bluestein approach assessing a brand's kind of social media presence or social commerce presence if they have one.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we are looking at their content, we're looking for something that has a certain authenticity to what the brand is. So I think particularly for an early stage, it's less about something that's very polished, but something that more really can feel a genuine connection, and something that can sometimes, I think, build on each other. I think, not just getting that one viral post, but something that you can engage with and build on a consistent basis. As you kind of said, this is somewhat of an entertainment channel. So you want to figure out ways to keep people engaged. And I think when you see that natural engagement coming from the consumers, that's something that I think for us gets us excited, because that seems like that's usually the basis for a potential community to kind of develop over time. Which I was going to kind of ask, which is, do you, when you're looking at this, and there's a question here in the chat about overnight success, um, you know, do you see this, the people who really kind of get success, is it come from that one, kind of that one viral moment that kind of goes to thing, or is it more that consistent, really hitting on it and something that kind of builds on itself over time? What is the formulas you're seeing out there develop?
Yeah. Um, it is essentially maximizing your chance for good luck is the formula that I see. So that consistency is key, right? In training any algorithm, the algorithm needs enough data to be able to work more effectively. So our algorithm for content works off of content quality, content quantity, and content consistency. So if you cannot get the consistency, you are cutting yourself off at the legs to start, right? And that's, again, the role that affiliates can play. Rather than the brand, or in addition to the brand producing a video every day, get affiliates to produce 100 videos every day. So the algorithm can really capitalize on that engagement and put you in front of the right audiences. That said, we see that the majority of the top sellers in our category are driven from some level of virality. And that will come from those affiliates and that content quantity. So the formula for success is essentially drive a bunch of content behind your product, get a bunch of engagement behind that content, and ideally get that content produced alongside one of our campaigns. So we run a bunch of campaigns, we run a bunch of promotions, but with an influx of eyeballs and an influx of content, they will essentially tell the algorithm that a bunch of people are talking about your product, a bunch of people are engaging with that content talking about your product, and in converting through strong price points and ringing endorsements, that will essentially be circuitous and feed off of itself and show the algorithm that you should be put in front of more consumers therein. So once you've got the level of virality, we see the life cycle of what we call kind of a hero product lasts for anywhere from 3 to 5 months or so. So you will need to then build another hero product. You will need to be consistent. And we see the brands that are most successful as those brands who are nimble, who understand the life cycle of a hero product, who can be nimble enough to work with and change with the changing trends on TikTok. And it's really fun and interesting to watch things like the term chicken jockey, or these things that your daughter, your kids might be saying, play into CPG videos and like see that enter the zeitgeist for some of these bigger legacy brands who are trying to appeal to new audiences.
Yeah. So interesting kind of it sounds like playing into the system of TikTok, is a key thing. And I guess, do you see that as, I guess the recipe of success here of someone, do you as a brand need to be into and engaged to what's happening on TikTok, kind of understanding how the system's working and playing to that versus just focusing on content and generating, like is it kind of you need to do both? And from that aspect of understanding how the system works, do you see people kind of engaging with, brokers or agencies who really help people figure that out? Because obviously that's a lot to do on top of running a business.
Yeah. I would say you don't need to understand what the term chicken jockey means. So you don't need to be in the zeitgeist that much. But you do need to understand how this new channel works, right? It's a new model that I liken to Amazon 25 years ago, right? If it's a new model of selling and you're not yet good at it and you don't have content creation in your DNA, then it's going to be a lot to learn. And I encourage brands to learn that. But I do see that most sizable brands, let's call it brands who are doing 10 million plus in top line elsewhere, often hire agencies. So we've got a program for TikTok shop partner agencies. So I've got 40 or so agencies who have been trained and vetted, and I can match make a brand with them. So brand A, right? Andrews Portco comes to me and says, "Hey, I've got a budget of this, and I want an agency to do XYZ. This is the scope of work." I can essentially give you 3 to 5 agencies, and you negotiate a scope of work and in a retainer offline, and they can run it. We've got agencies who do stuff from end to end. You don't ever want to see TikTok shop. You just want the numbers coming in. Great. I've also got agencies who could focus on just one thing, like live selling, right? Which is kind of this new scenario of selling. So I do see that agencies can help, but the smaller brands, I've seen brands go from 0 to a $25 million run rate with no agency help. And it is, I mean, that does throw a wrench in their business operations, right? If you've got to find a new co-man because you've got stupid volume coming from a new channel, like you are kind of running around the place and you've got somebody, you've got your COO packing boxes. So you do have to think about what role TikTok Shop will play in a channel strategy. And are you ready for your viral moment? Because that viral moment can, and I hopefully will come. I don't say bet on your viral moment coming, right? You need to place the appropriate bets. But I will absolutely say that agencies can play a role for those brands who don't have dedicated support on their team already for someone to manage the e-commerce channel. So to be explicit, I would say for a brand to manage TikTok Shop effectively takes 2 to 3 hours a day.
And in terms of, you hit on economics, and obviously as marketers, right, you're thinking about kind of return on ad spend. Are there certain metrics that, maybe could you kind of walk us through a little bit of how a brand should be thinking about the economics of selling on TikTok in terms of, what costs, where they should be thinking, where their levers of spend can be going into, and then what are the like important metrics that they can be following that may help them kind of thinking about managing what they're doing on the platform.
Yeah. So I will say, right, I'm an emerging brands guy through and through. I'm an emerging brands evangelist. I worked at Bluestein. Like I want to be a good steward of everyone's capital. And I think that is what excited me most about this role was like, this was as even a playing field for cash strapped startups to compete with the incumbents or the legacy brands as existed in the world of retail. Now, some of that has gone away, right? As we've sprinted towards profitability and as we've matured a bit, ads are playing more of an important role. Again, similar to how Amazon was 20 years ago. But let's walk through the economics of it. So any brand who comes onto TikTok Shop pays 6% as a platform fee. In the first 30 days, they pay a discounted rate of 3%, but 6% is all that Cameron takes. Apart from that, the other big component that is, I will say, a requirement, it's not technically a requirement, but if you want to succeed, you should use the affiliates, is the affiliate program. The affiliate program, Portco A comes onto platform and they can cast a wide net to all the affiliates. And they say, I'm making my product available for affiliate A to endorse and to sell and produce content with a shoppable link in exchange for a commission that the brand sets. So brand sets the commission that an affiliate will get. The prevailing rate in food and beverage is anywhere from 15 to 20%. So let's call that 15% commission to the affiliate, 6% to Cameron. I would think about that as essentially your 21% to 26% trade rate. That said, you're not paying anything out of the gate, right? This is all variable, and you're not paying anything until you make a sale, which is the part that I find exciting. So the only upfront cost is you learning how to produce content, you learning how to be on TikTok Shop. And then apart from that, you will pay shipping for your product. So like I said, this marketplace is essentially a front end that sits on top of a Shopify infrastructure or any other e-commerce platform infrastructure. So you'll ship your product, you've got your COGS, and then of course you can do ad spend. I would say it's not necessary out of the gate. It can certainly help jumpstart some of the stuff, but I would say prioritizing the affiliates over ads is crucial, and that can be a bit of a misconception. It can feel counterintuitive because brands have been spending on TikTok for so long. I don't need spend, right? Again, I've seen the Amazon ad side, I've seen TikTok ad side. Like I want your budget to go to sending a bunch of samples to affiliates to get a bunch of people to talk about your product. Because people talking about your product rather than having a little sponsored ad on TikTok is what is going to resonate with the audiences that you want to get. So I would think about your spend being put behind, stage one, put it behind getting a bunch of samples out to affiliates. Think about compelling commissions. Think about a little bit of discounting to jumpstart that flywheel, right? Because the algorithm also wants to see some velocity. So maybe run a flash sale on 50 units just to get that flywheel spinning. And then you spark some of those most successful affiliate videos. You can throw some ads behind that and test and learn, right? This is a really flexible environment where you can throw a couple $100 behind a video, see what it does. I've got a lot of brands who throw ads behind some of their stuff and they see it convert on Amazon. Like, I don't like that because I don't get my 6%, but that means that you've got a ROAS that is probably double what we're telling you it is, right? So rather than your 3 to 5 ROAS, you've got a 10 because customers are going to Amazon where they can get a product next day, or walking out to a Kroger and buying the product there. So we are absolutely seeing some halo effect. It makes attribution a real bitch, I will say. But brands can certainly, like, there are any number of levers. Again, I've got a legacy ads business with 100 different ads vehicles, but I think stage one is get the brands to talk to affiliates and flood that marketplace with content about your product.
Yeah. Do you with the various of channels of obviously Instagram's another kind of content, do you see people kind of porting over kind of content between those channels, or is it very much unique? And how does TikTok Shop and kind of TikTok, the platform, kind of coexist, right? Like, are they thinking about, like, is the same thing that I'm doing for TikTok Shop work for building my presence in TikTok, as a whole? Do you like, do you branch think of these as integrated or separate? How to think about this in the mix of all the different channels.
Yeah, nobody producing content for Instagram brings it over to TikTok. People create content for TikTok first, and then sometimes put it on Reels or whatever it is. So I will say, like, we have built this very purposefully to feel like an integrated e-commerce platform, right? I'm going to share some numbers, right? I've got essentially a feed load maximum. I can only show one customer, right? Andrew's daughter, who's scrolling through her For You page, is only going to see a maximum of, let's say, 12 shoppable videos for every 100 videos that she swipes, because I don't want to dilute the organic experience of TikTok. But it is shown as part of your For You page, so it does feel really organic. So we have worked to make it feel seamless. I will say the magic formula is when a brand makes organic content on their, what we'll call their social TikTok page, and peppers in shoppable content from a TikTok Shop perspective. That said, and I would say 1 shoppable video for every 2 organic videos is what I've seen work. But I don't want brands to be disheartened if they don't have a big TikTok following. Like I mentioned, I've got that brand who went from a 0 to a $25 million run rate in 3 months, and they had 200 TikTok followers, right? You don't need a big TikTok following to succeed on platform. If you don't have that, you just need to get your product out to affiliates to get a bunch of people talking about this. Conversely, I've got very large brands who have 5 million followers who thought that the type of content that they were producing to get those 5 million followers were going to automatically lead to sales, and they didn't have to send a bunch of samples to affiliates. And they've not sold anything. So I think you really need to buy into the model, and we give you those pieces, right? There's terabytes of content that tell you how to work within the platform and how to succeed. You just need to be able and willing to watch that content and read that content and abide by the policies and test and learn with some of the tips and tricks that we'll give you.
Yeah. So let's talk about engagement and I guess kind of sustaining this. And, obviously discovery is a key element. Um, but how do you kind of keep it going? And I imagine obviously kind of getting people to try the product and want to keep trying the product is a key element. But what do you see? What are your thoughts on really sustaining the momentum, and kind of keeping that engagement going? Or should really be this me thinking more about more just around, hey, how do I reach just more and more new customers? Really use this as more a customer acquisition channel. So, how do you think about those two kind of levers, and what really works when you're thinking about the engagement side of things?
When I'm thinking about the engagement side of things, and again, like I've got a great example of well, the answer is like stay nimble and stay on top of things. If you've lost some momentum because again, you had some virality and that's tapered off to some degree, you need to get back into the swing of things. That can come through staying on top of trends. So I saw a brand like Lucky Energy uh, come back onto the platform and combine like 6 to 7 TikTok trends into one video that they produced, which was hilarious and got 10 million views or something like that. I've got brands who have stayed on top of the news circuit and are saying, if you don't want to support politician ABC, buy this product and I'll also send that politician a bag of rocks. So I would say staying relevant, staying nimble, and testing and learning. Again, this comes back to like the sandbox model. We are a 24-month, almost a 24-month-old platform, so it's still very new, which means the algorithm's also changing relatively rapidly. I would say that one way you can certainly drive that engagement is be engaging. Like this is one of the few platforms where you can actually have a direct contact with a customer. So I've seen some of the most successful brands respond to comments from customers. Hey, your product was too spicy for me. And they produce a whole video as to, hey, if you're a wimp, maybe you shouldn't try this product with that customer's comment right there. And that drives all sorts of engagement in the comments, which is really exciting. So being able to utilize this platform as, of course, a sales platform, but also a marketing platform and a consumer research platform simultaneously is a really unique opportunity that I encourage brands to think through and to budget with.
Yeah.
How about you guys? Have you had any successes in your portcos that have, really done well in creating ongoing engagement with their customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely see it across with a lot of our ones. We actually did another feature food series on this one brand, Millimend, that for those who are new to us, should definitely recommend you go listen to. It was founded by a founder, a woman. It's a women's health supplement business focused around PCOS as a condition, and their product is around hormonal balance. And what the founder Mila really has done a great job is really building community. So I think when we think about kind of growing brand over time, is okay, I may be selling you a specific product, but I'm now trying to also kind of engage with you in ways. And what I think what's creative around what they're doing is it's not just about content about their product, but it's about, product content that gets into what this community is interested in. So they do meal recipes, they do, various aspects of personal care, other things that really hit into what they do. And then I think your other thing of just like, people making having fun, right? Like I think obviously as a brand, like you're trying to sell a product, but do a few things that, as you said, like this has to be entertaining. Otherwise, people are just gonna, swipe away. And so, that's a great one that we very much are excited about to see how it is, because that's ultimately, this can't just be a 3 month thing. This has to be part of building out yourself over a 5 plus year period of time. So
Yeah.
um do
You
you
get
find do you find the affiliates, and kind of hit on that, as being kind of part of a way to kind of drive that engagement? And are there any really good like success stories or case studies of people who have like really nailed at how the affiliates can really accentuate things over time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say, in the VMS space, in the supplement space, Goalie Nutrition, who you've probably seen at Costco and all over the place, they they took the affiliate program and turned it up to 10, right? So as I mentioned, we facilitate that engagement on the back end, but we see some level of Pareto efficiency where we've got some subset of affiliates who drive the majority of the top line for a brand in any given period. What we've seen Goalie do really well is take those affiliates, engage them offline, and essentially gamify the experience, align incentives further, right? So if we talk about aligned incentives, I think this platform aligns incentives very well. Affiliates get paid a commission for every unit that they sell, which means they're not going to talk badly about your product. If they don't like your product, they're just not going to produce content about it, because it doesn't behoove them to talk badly about the product, because they're not going to be making money. But what Goalie did above and beyond that was they built a series, they essentially built a prize system. So their most successful, like 100 affiliates, they took offline into a Discord or a Slack channel, and they said, hey, if you produce $1,000 of sales for us, we'll give you AirPods. If you produce $100,000 of top line for us, we'll get you a Tesla. If you produce $1 million of top line for us, we'll get you a trip to Europe, a Tesla, a MacBook, a bunch of stuff. And that's cumulative. So that has not only spurred some initial engagement from those top affiliates, but keeps them really engaged. They've got a really loyal affiliate base now. And I would think about that as, how do you drive loyalty not only for consumers, but also for affiliates? How do you get affiliate A who nailed it on your last product? How do you keep them engaged through your product development cycle, through commercialization, and say, hey, affiliate A, I'm launching this product in a couple of months. I want you to be the first video on TikTok talking about this, so you get your 15% and you generate a bunch of sales. So make it exciting for affiliates, right? Affiliates are on this platform because they want to make money. They've got a unique audience and they're really killer at creating content. So thinking through how you drive that engagement and how you drive that loyalty is going to be key.
Yeah. It sounds like maybe I should become a Goalie affiliate. That's a
Yeah.
pretty attractive program there. So
Need a new Tesla. That's the play.
um uh a couple of questions I've got here on different brands. So, okay, obviously on food, ecom works great for shelf stable things that can easy shipping. So, do you see a lot of the sales online go towards the typical kind of ecom products? What do you think about companies beverage, things like beverages or something that's perishable or frozen? Are you seeing brands kind of invest there, or are they saying, hey, that's still about my retail game, and TikTok is more, either deprioritized or kind of a smaller piece of their picture?
I will say some combination therein. So I only unlocked refrigerated and frozen products about 2 months ago. I would not let them be sold on TikTok Shop. I've got trust and safety is my top priority as somebody in food and as somebody in an emerging platform. We fail as a platform if we don't get customer trust. And that was something our food safety team and I couldn't really get behind in the initial stages. So we've built moderation algorithms now that allow us to appropriately sell fresh and frozen products. That said, like you mentioned, shipping a 6-pack of McConnell's ice cream for, a $75 price point plus $20 shipping isn't the most appealing for all customers. So there are a certain number of customers who are price insensitive, who want McConnell's ice cream, right? The gold belly customers, if you will, who are willing to pay any price for something that they love. That might be my customer for fresh and frozen. So to answer your question, still testing on fresh and frozen. From a beverage standpoint, yeah, you've got form factors like sachets and powders that are your tried and true DTC winners that are margin rich that do what really well here. But I've also got RTDs that do well, right? Some of those were here back in the day when I was stapling a $10 bill to every shipment because I was generating, I was really incentivizing merchant and customer acquisition. So I was paying for free shipping, and a lot of those subsidies have gone by the wayside. But I've still got brands, RTDs should be a relatively margin rich product. Now, if you're paying $12 in shipping, obviously a lot of that goes away. But I've got a brand of energy drinks who managed to sell full price. They've got an LTO launch every month. They launch their 12 pack of the new flavor and they sell out in 6 hours. They sell 10,000 cases in 6 hours every LTO launch, which is bananas, right? Like every investor's dream, if you can scale that, if you can platformatize that. But yeah, I've got a bunch of folks still selling RTDs. And you just need to model that out, right? You need to understand where the numbers are. You need to figure out what you're willing to put into that and what that drives, longer term Halo wise, and then what that might drive off platform as well.
Yeah. A few other kind of questions that I've seen that come up, just anything outside of just products like restaurants, you see other kind of avenues of getting food. Is that go through TikTok Shop, or is that purely just on a TikTok world?
Right now, purely on a TikTok world. We are exploring where we may be able to drive more excitement for consumers longer term. But we are, again, super new platform. So I'm trying to build the very basics, right? I'm trying to build a foundation that works. I've just rolled out a subscription model. So subscribe and save is something that we just rolled out in the world of supplements and food and beverage. We've just rolled out fresh and frozen. Localized delivery, which is essentially your restaurant capability, is something that we have not rolled out yet. It's,
Yep.
the tech is substantial, but we are exploring where we may be able to drive the most excitement for customers.
Yep. Yep. Had a couple questions here about countries. I don't know if you guys are just US today, but there's some about Canada, so some Europe questions, kind of you expanding globally over time.
We started in China, and in 2 years, we're at half the size of Amazon, if that answers the question there. Canada, we have taken a pause on for now. We've doubled down on the US. So we are expanding internationally, yes. Canada, not right now. Europe, we exist. So we're in, I want to say, Ireland and the UK, and we may be launching Germany at some point soon. But yes, we are globally expanding, but I would say right now, my focus, just the US. Organizationally, our focus, we're doubling down on the US right now.
Yeah. So I guess zooming back out, you've had a chance, working within this rocket ship TikTok Shop, you've helping launch Amazon Fresh. Like, you've seen a lot of things that have been developing over the last 6-7 years. How do you see kind of this kind of going forward the next 5 years? Where do you see the world of online food and commerce? Certainly we see more and more kind of bigger platforms kind of come into play. Do you see just more kind of some of these platforms coming onto each other's turfs more and more? Do you see some harmony? Kind of what's your predictions for the future here?
This is, in a non-competitive way, and a non-professional way. This is a lot of my dining table talk with the wife, right? Because we've seen Amazon try their hand at live selling. We've tried our hand at, traditional e-commerce here. I think each platform will play in their own space for now, right? So the pace of change, for brands and kind of the ecosystem, if I think about it from a brand perspective and what I see on shelf, moves in line to some degree with access to capital, right? So the pace of innovation is great when you can find cheap cash. But I think AI continues to accelerate kind of this pace of change. And with Gen AI kind of taking out the low judgment tasks and allowing companies and brands to focus on that high judgment work, you're going to see a lot more nuance in these platforms. How that manifests itself, I'm not quite sure, right? Not to say that we are going to be just the live selling platform, but right now we're kind of offering a lot to a lot of people. We're offering kind of your searchable e-commerce, which represents 15% of my sales. We've got live selling, which represents 10% of my sales right now, but should be growing over the next year or so, maybe to 20%. Then we've got like these shoppable videos, which represent about 65% of my top line. I think we're going to see unique forms in each of those that make them feel like different experiences, right? What I think is happening is what we are doing really well at TikTok Shop, and I think what others are trying to do with AI is make shopping personal again. And I think that's where some of the big brick and mortars are lagging. Being able to shop with your values, make a very informed decision on what a brand is and what a brand isn't, and how that is going to play into your consumption decisions is something that we are seeing online partners do really well, just because we've got the real estate to do it, right? So if I've got real estate for 5 of your friends to tell you whether or not they like a product, as opposed to you walking down the aisle of ABC grocery store and saying, this packaging looks interesting, or the one paragraph on the back of pack looks interesting, I think I win in that equation if that's how you shop. Obviously, we've got some hurdles, right? I'm not going to be able to sell you a basket of goods completely this year, but I think it will become more nuanced, and personal shopping and shopping with your values is going to become easier for consumers to do over the next few years.
Yep. AI, obviously that's permeating through a lot of things. AI content, I don't know if AI affiliate content, like, do you see AI kind of changing that part of the game? Are you seeing that kind of pop out other places, AI kind of potentially impacting things?
Yeah, I would say the AI driven content creation, the graphics are kind of weird me out still. Like I subscribe to ChatGPT and make a lot of my own stuff, but like there are some weird trends, like turning adults into babies and having them talk. Weird. I think the where I see AI playing a really interesting role is helping brands form their narrative, get your USPs out there in a manner that will resonate with an audience, right? Being able to structure a script that allows you to create a video that feels authentic, but isn't just you looking at your phone talking, is something that I think AI will do really well. So helping turn operators into content creators is something I think AI is doing well here.
Yeah. Awesome. This has been amazing. I'm sure we could go for a lot longer. So I guess last final question. We got a lot of brands on here. How do they engage with TikTok Shop? How should they, if they want to get in touch, who do they go to? And any tips about how best to really engage with your team? And then just in general, kind of any final words of advice to the brands as they think about, kind of leveraging TikTok Shop.
Yeah, I would say our leading indicator of success for a brand on TikTok Shop is their engagement with the platform. Um, it's not particularly uh, it's not particularly novel, right? The more you put into a platform, the more you will get out of it. But we see that if you are dipping a toe in and not committing to the model, which is create content, engage with affiliates, send samples to those affiliates, and have fun and test and learn, then you're not going to be successful. But if you're willing to jump in, right? If you've identified what role you want this to play in a channel strategy, and you're willing to hire a TikTok Shop person, or increase the scope of your e-commerce person, or hire an agency to run TikTok Shop for you, and you're willing to put product behind that, and you've modeled out the economics, and you can make that margin work for you, then you can be really, really successful. So my advice to brands is model it out, be consistent, and have conviction in your bets, right? This is not a channel for everybody. If you've got 20% gross, like there are some channels that might work for you. This might not be the one. Um, but have conviction in your bets, because some of them will pay off and some of them won't. But if you have a plan and you're consistent, at least you'll take away a learning from any number of those decisions.
With that, thank you very much, sir. It's been amazing. Love to see you keep rocking, changing the face of the food world, and look forward to see more of that to come in the years ahead. So be good, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Thanks, team. Appreciate it. Have a great one, y'all.